Members of council, can you please take your seats? This meeting is now resumed. If I can ask members of council to please rise. And during this time, please remember Sidney Cooper and Stephen Anderson Otto. Thank you. Mayor Tory.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With your indulgence and that of Council, I want to just take a minute to update the members of Council on the state of the city and a couple of things related to the aftermath of Monday's tragic events. And I hope, Madam Speaker, as we continue with our deliberations on other matters today, we'll be mindful of what I think is still a fragile state of mind on the part of a lot of the people that we represent, and they expect us to carry on our business, but I think they would also hope that we could do so in a sensitive and respectful manner, given that we're still in the aftermath of a really searing tragedy. In fact, for some, the shock is maybe beginning to wear off, but for others, I think it's just setting in as we start to see the faces and the stories of the victims emerge and come to grips with something that we always knew, which is that the victims and the heroes are real people with families and stories of their lives, and that even some of the heroes have been traumatized by what they experienced on Monday doing the right thing. I think we've seen that for ourselves. One really encouraging thing has been the response of the public, who in most cases were not in any way directly involved in this, but they've established the memorial at Yonge Street near Finch, which is something that is, I think, a very Torontonian thing. It's just a testament to the love and caring of Torontonians from all corners. And similarly, I'm happy to update you on the Toronto Strong Fund, initiated really just over a day ago. And I want to report on it as a means of encouraging people who have not yet taken a look at it to support it. Since I spoke about it here yesterday, the fund has taken in $413,000 with the support of many different companies and individuals, and we know there are people who were in touch with us yesterday saying they wanted to take part in this and be part of it, so we're very hopeful that they will do so, and we're hopeful that the total will go much, much higher so that we can help all of those who need help in the aftermath of Monday's events. And just a reminder to people that they can go to torontofoundation.ca/Toronto Strong. That's torontofoundation.ca/Toronto Strong to donate, even if it is $1 or $2. In fact, especially if it's $1 or $2, if people can spare that, and that's all they can spare, I think it would be a meaningful gesture to those who've been suffering, because I think that can be a part of the healing process for the city, to have many people participating in that. Healing for them, healing for the city, obviously healing for those who will be helped. And finally, with thanks again to Councillors Mihevc and Fillion, as you know, I hope details have been announced of a vigil that the city will very much be a part of, to be held at Mel Lastman Square this Sunday evening at 7 o'clock. And I hope that we can show by our presence the compassion of our city, but also its strength and resiliency in the face of this terrible tragedy. So I just wanted to bring those two things, the state of the fund and the reminder about the vigil, to the attention of members of council. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Mihevc.
Yes, just because you gave me the floor, Madam Speaker, let me add that the Sunday event the faith communities have really come together on this and are putting their best foot forward, and have just been amazing. So if you have an opportunity, my colleague councillors, to tweet it out and let people know, Sunday 7 o'clock, everyone is welcome. But at this moment, it gives me great pleasure to introduce three guests from Portugal who are here to commemorate what is now the 44th anniversary of the Revolution of the Carnations, which was a revolution in 1974 that was nonviolent. They are Eugenia Magalhães, Antonio Marques Lopez, and Jorge Manuel Caetano, and they are hosted by Carlos Morjadinho, si quieres. Carlos Morjadinho has been organizing Portuguese folks to come to Toronto on this occasion for many, many years, and a former City of Toronto employee, now retired. Welcome. Bienvenido.
Welcome. Thank you. Members of council, we will now review and confirm the order paper. There are 47 items left on the agenda, plus 28 members' motions. City Council has not completed the mayor's second key item, item EX 33.2 on expanded gaming at Woodbine Racetrack, city conditions, and Council is considering this item with item EY 29.2, the final report on 555 Rexdale Boulevard zoning bylaw amendment. Council will resume that debate as the first items of business today. Council also decided to consider the following items after the mayor's key item. Item EX 33.3 on the development charges bylaw review, results of additional consultation, and item EX 33.7 on an update on the ground lease amendment for the Toronto Transit Commission lands at Yonge and Eglinton, Canada Square. Yesterday, Council also decided to consider item CC 39.10 on actions taken to date arising from Council's decision respecting the Auditor General's investigation into a certain land transaction as the first item of business this morning. Council has not yet completed the mayor's key item, and Council has also timed other items for consideration after the mayor's key matter. I propose that item CC 39.10 be dealt with after EX 33.7. City Council will consider members' motions at 2 p.m. if the mayor's key item has been completed. Council has also timed item CC 39.4, the Ombudsman Annual Report, and item EX 33.8 on the Smart City Challenge update to follow after members' motions. Given the other timed items ahead of these, I expect they will be dealt with later today or tomorrow. I will now take the release of members' holds. Please put your name under request to question staff.
All the standing committees are done.
Councillor Shan.
Madam Speaker, on page 8, CC 39.1, declaring the office of Councillor Ward 33 Don Valley East vacant and deciding the rules of appointing a replacement. I can release that with the record at what?
Okay. On page 8, CC.
Declare the office vacant and to move forward with an appointment. We've no choice. I'm voting against it.
What's the microphone is on?
Oh, sorry, yes. Page 8, CC 39.1, Councillor Shan is releasing. Favor?
Madam Speaker, I ask for a record at what?
Yes, okay.
I don't support it.
Councillor Crisanti, please. Thank you.
The item carries 27-5.
Councillor Mammoliti.
Madam Speaker, on page 6 of the blue sheets, 29.55, I'd like to defer this until the next meeting. I'd like an opportunity to work with staff on this.
Okay, that's on page 6, EY 2955, which is the 350-year-old oak tree. Defer it to the next council meeting?
The next...
Okay. The next term or the next council meeting? The next council meeting. Okay. Did we want a recorded vote on that? No. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Karygiannis.
Yes, Madam Speaker. I'd like to release on page 4, EX 33.17, adjustments and accelerations to the Park, Forestry, and Recreation 2018 capital budget and 2019-2027 capital plan.
Okay, that's on page 4, the bottom of page 4, EX 3317. Councillor Karygiannis is releasing. All in favor? Carried. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Since I'm going to work with, since I'm going to, on page 5, yeah, since I'm going to roll this, Councillor Kelly says EX 33.19, solid waste 2018 capital budget and 2019-2027 capital plan adjustments.
You're releasing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, on page 5, EX 3319, Councillor Karygiannis is releasing. All in favor? Carried. Okay.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if staff have, I gave them a motion yesterday about ELS 24.2. If they have that motion ready, it can go up.
Sorry, Jim.
Okay.
Hold that. Jim, can you hold that?
Do we
I'll
have-
hold it, okay.
Do we have-
PW 28.7.
Okay, just one sec. I just want to ask staff, do we have that motion? No? But the body rubs?
It's not quick anyways. I've got
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Also,
Okay?
continue to hold.
Okay, your
PW
next one.
28.7, road classification amendments.
Okay, you release that one?
Yes, madam.
Okay, on page 5, PW 28.7, Councillor Karygiannis is releasing. Recorded? Recorded vote?
Councillor Wong Tam. Councillor Matlow, please.
The item carries unanimously, 33 in favor.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Speaker. On page 4, EX 33.11, which is the 2018 education tax levy and clawback rates. I've had my questions answered. I would
Okay, on page
release it.
4, EX 3311, Councillor Davis is releasing. Are you moving the supplementary report as well, Councillor Davis? Sorry, are you moving the
And I will move this supplementary report.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Yeah. Do we have any more? No? How about you, Councillor Holliday? No? Okay, we'll go back to page 3, EX 32.2, if you can just give us a minute to put the speakers list on the screen. Oh, just a sec, all those in favor of adopting the order paper, all in favor? Carried. Thanks. Councillor Cressy, you have Okay.
Mic is on.
Oh, hold on, there's something wrong with your mic. Okay, it's on now.
Thank you. Just very briefly on a point of personal privilege, I didn't have time to do another condolence motion, but I wanted to extend condolences on behalf of council to David Layton. David was a father of 2, a husband to Carol and an uncle for many, including to Councillor Layton. David succumbed after a long battle with cancer just earlier this week, and he had a long career, including as vice president of the YMCA, where he led the development of the city's own Cooper Coo YMCA in Corktown, as well as 505 Richmond and work in Weston also. And so on behalf of council, I wanted to extend condolences to the family of David Layton. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Is that the judge's brother?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew I worked with him on...
Councillor Mihevik.
He was lovely.
Councillor Mihevik.
Yes, Madam Speaker, as much as I would like to speak, again, I think I was the last speaker yesterday
Oh,
on this item,
well, then you don't speak again.
unless you want me to.
Okay, they just haven't updated the screen. That's okay, thank you. Councillor Davis.
Yes. Oh. Oops. I'm up first to speak, is
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes?
I have a motion. I have a motion. I wonder if it could be put on the screen. And that we request the province of Ontario and the Ontario Gaming Lottery Corporation to provide the city with 1/3 of the residual gaming revenue generated from the gaming facility at Woodbine, etc. I have chosen to make this point in a motion, and I know that it's unlikely that they're going to concede this revenue to us. But I had the opportunity to further explore with our CFO the potential revenue being generated by this new casino. And right now, it generates about 16 million for the city, and we're about to get maybe 10 more for about 26 million. And if you extrapolate that same percentage of revenue growth to Woodbine, who receive now about 750 million, they're likely to minimally generate over $1.25 billion. And of the $1.25 billion that this license to print money will give to Woodbine, we will get about 10 million. So this deal for Woodbine, the Woodbine Casino, is just not a good deal for the City of Toronto. I do recognize that for the first time, and I want to commend our staff and the Community Benefits Network for their work on this. We have seen in this agreement targets that are that we're attempting to secure, protocols that we are attempting to provide enforcement and ensure that the provisions are met.
Okay, Councillor Davis, I'm going to put your time on hold. Please, if I can ask please take your seats, try to keep it down. It's hard to hear. Okay, Councillor Davis. Continue. Go ahead, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Speaker.
You're welcome.
And I did want to reiterate once again what we heard from the city solicitor and other staff, that in answer to a series of questions both at committee and on the floor of council, that they have come forward with the recommendation to say that in their opinion the conditions are met. But it is this council that is interpreting those conditions, those 21 conditions, and determining whether we believe they're met. Now, there are those who have suggested that somehow a childcare centre would fall outside the scope, and I don't believe it does at all. Conditions 14 and 15 that speak to employment, that speak to 3 streams, retention, recruitment, and equity, those 3 streams, of course childcare contributes to making sure that this facility has employees and recruits employees who can go to work. And the very target group that we're hoping for, the local staff, local residents in the Rexdale area, we hope they can get those jobs. And yes, if there's a childcare centre, there will be city subsidies available if it is a nonprofit childcare centre. And I want to thank Councillor Bailao for the motion she's brought forward to make sure that we do have a childcare centre that supports women who want to go to work, which is the primary rationale that the supporters are providing, that it will create jobs. Well, I can tell you that for women, and for women who work odd hours, and there will be odd hours, long hours, different hours, they will not be able to work there if they don't have childcare, and in particular, single women. I don't understand why my colleagues are making faces. That is fundamental. We all know that women need childcare to work. And every piece of evidence we know from the experience in other jurisdictions, when childcare is made available, women's labor force participation rate goes up. So let's support that motion to allow these workers, women and others, to access the jobs that are going to be available.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and good morning. I have a couple of motions. I'd like to move the supplementary report, EX 33.2A, and then I have an additional motion that would be B. And basically, A and B of the motion reads that the Toronto and York Regional Labour Council be included in the representation on the Community Steering Committee and also the Employment and Labour Market Advisory Working Group. Additionally, that the Toronto Community Benefits Network be included in representation on the Employment and Labour Advisory Working Group, and the Casino Woodbine Responsible Gaming Oversight Committee. Speaker, I want to certainly thank the OLG, I guess, and the province for making a decision to allow for expanded gaming at Woodbine. We've had the local councillors, Councillor Ford and Councillor Ford prior to Councillor Ford, who had come forward and asked for our support. Because of the issues surrounding this area, it's a very challenged area. Many years ago, I owned a house in that area, and it was challenged then, and it hasn't changed dramatically. There is an opportunity for us to be able to help in this area. Councillor Davis has spoke very eloquently about the daycare, and she has been very adamant in terms of this as an issue, to be able to help women particularly, but more importantly to help families with respect to being able to have a safe place for their children to be placed on a daily basis so that they can in fact go to work and be able to earn a living to support their families. I don't actually have any fundamental problem with the organization that's seeking to set up this particular facility, the gaming facility there. I'm not a gamer, and that's fine. There are people who are, and I think that people should be allowed to, gambler, and so on. That people should be allowed to do as they wish. I think that it's an adult decision. Clearly, we know that there are some challenges, and I think Councillor Cressy has spoken to those. By the way, I won't be supporting the 18-hour operation. I think 24 is appropriate. People can decide what they want to do. And in fact, if we were not to allow 18 hours here, people would go to Rama or Niagara or someplace else where they want to gamble. I'd rather have them closer to home. And so the reasons why I'm supporting or moving forward the items in motion B is that I've had a chance to work with the Toronto and York Regional Labour Council for many, many years. And I believe that they could actually bring additional elements to help the community to support their intention in terms of working with, obviously, the operator at Casino Woodbine to ensure they strengthen the needs of the community. And I'll tell you one reason why, Speaker. I had the opportunity of meeting with the representatives of the casino company in my office. I later attempted to broker a meeting. An email was sent to my office, and the email made a number of a particular statement which seemed to suggest that the city manager's office had implied or told them that the meeting could not take place. I then went and spoke to the city manager's office. They indicated to me that was not the case. And I think what I'm hearing here is that an operation that's going to be making, has been stated, billions of dollars, in the case of a daycare, not wishing to, wanting to invest in the community $5 million. It just doesn't equate, quite frankly, and I think that this is something that they really need to reconsider. And so I'm offering the motion B to allow us to be able to go back to renegotiate, obviously, the conditions that I think would be satisfactory to this council, because I think it's incumbent on us to be able to help the community. Clearly, we support the fact that this organization is going to be here. They're going to be here for a long period of time. And so it's really incumbent on us to ensure that the benefits that will accrue to the community will be such that the community will have appropriate representation on the respective committees with expertise to actually help them to be able to generate the benefits that we actually want for the community. So, Speaker, those are the reasons why I'm actually moving the motions here, and I'm hopeful that the representatives that are here from the company will be amenable and mindful of the needs to ensure that support is provided to this community, where not only will they be able to be represented well on the different committees that we have listed in the governance model in Exhibit 6, but also that the daycare actually will provide the amenities that are needed in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Layton to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. There was an advanced circulated motion of referral. I won't be moving that at this stage, and I'll tell you why. I think we all heard quite clearly from city staff that a referral back to the city manager's office to continue negotiations was their preferred method for changing the conditions on the community benefit agreement. During council yesterday, there were obviously some deliberations between the operators, the mayor's staff, and others on council that have made agreement that some of these conditions meet with their approval. So I'm glad to see that in Councillor Bailão's motion, many of the parts of the advanced circulation motion of the direction that we were hoping to send staff were included. Unfortunately, not all of them were, and some critical ones weren't. One is the critical ask from the community, the community benefits network, that the number of local jobs, number of full-time jobs be increased. You know what? I'm gonna start at the beginning here. No one's going to be surprised where my vote is at the end of the day on this item, because my position since 2013 has not changed. Casinos prey on problem gamblers. We heard that 25% of the revenue that comes in to casinos come from problem gamblers. $1 billion, the $1 billion of profit that this casino is going to bring in to mostly, or something like 95% of which will go to the operator and the provincial government, because we'll get under 4%, we heard from staff. 25% of that is coming from problem gamblers. People losing their homes, going bankrupt. People struggling with relationships and their families. And we saw that in some of the correspondence coming from our faith leaders of the city who have to clean up those messes after they're made. 25% of that revenue, pretty much the whole increase in their profit and the province's end is coming from problem gamblers. Just think about that. Our provincial government is doing this to raise more revenue. They haven't been shy about that. They haven't been shy. And they're doing it on the backs of people with addictions. So that's one of the reasons why I won't be supporting the recommendation in the end, because I don't believe the city and the deal that's been struck meets with the conditions that we've laid out. I also think, like, you could say what you will, that there's balanced in some of the literature on the matter, but when you look at some of the stronger literature, they first point out that you have to disregard all the literature that's funded by the gambling industry. Most academics actually liken it to the tobacco industry funding research in the 50s. And once you take out all that other information and put together the untainted, unbiased literature, it suggests that actually it's not all a jackpot for the local community. In fact, it's more like it costs $3 for every dollar the casino brings in. It also, as we heard from our medical officer of health, proximity is a driver, accessibility is a driver for increased problem gambling. This literature also points out that casinos don't take money, don't create new money, they take money out of the local economy. So while we're talking about some net new jobs, you got to think about the loss of jobs in those same communities that councillors here profess to champion so strongly for. Those small businesses are going to suffer as a result. So there's another reason why I won't be supporting the casino. Based on these facts, I didn't vote for a casino in my backyard down in the downtown area of Toronto, and for those very same facts, I won't be supportive of this casino. But I will say that if we are going to accept that, we need to get the best deal possible, and that means the most possible jobs, the least possible impact on problem gamblers, which is why Councillor Cressy's motion is so important, oversight, which is why Councillor Thompson's motion is so important, and of course, yes, ensuring that everyone can enjoy in the financial benefits of employment at the casino, which is a major part of Councillor Bailão's motion. I will, though, very quickly just mention that on the licensing and standards item on payday loan lenders, you will also see I've advanced circulated a motion that was prepared by staff that will restrict payday loan operators around the Woodbine site, and I hope that you'll all support that.
Thank you. Councillor Shan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to actually begin by acknowledging the work done by community organizations and activists on the ground. The proposal is strong today with a few more benefits to the community because of the hard work of many activists and individuals, particularly young people who organized in the Etobicoke area, North Etobicoke area, the labor unions, the hospitality workers, and particularly the Toronto Community Benefits Network and CORD. They have been consistent in pushing to make sure that this particular development, this particular project makes sure that that the local needs are met, there's local benefits in this process. So I want to acknowledge the work that they've done. I also want to thank them for it. Having said that, I am strongly in opposition to expanding gambling for many reasons that have been articulated by Councillor Layton and Councillor Cressy. I used to be in the not-for-profit sector before coming here and have seen firsthand the impact of problem gambling in terms of young people and their lives being fully taken away from them slowly, families splitting, families having difficulties, leading to mental health, leading to attempted suicide and suicide. And these are real examples in our community. You can talk to our organization, our faith groups, they will give you those examples. And when it comes to opposing a casino in the downtown core, for the very same reason we should be opposing casinos and expansion of gambling in Etobicoke. Etobicoke is not far away from residential area. Etobicoke is an area that where this is going to be situated is going to be very close to neighborhoods that have been under serious disadvantage, neighborhoods that have been marginalized, neighborhoods that are facing serious barriers in terms of economic labor market participation. So the way to pitch this as an economic boost to a community that has been marginalized is a double standard, because, you know, if you want to really invest into economic development, why not create healthy jobs? When I say healthy jobs, jobs that do not depend on taking advantage of vulnerable population. Why is it okay for us to go into communities and say that they can have these types of jobs because there are no jobs available? This is a double standard. As a city, we should be watching as to how we treat these situations as an economic thing. So young people, racialized people, seniors, people in low income, and this is going to be located very close to those communities, and I'm very afraid of the impact this will have. We haven't really calculated the social impact of this. So I see that, just like many other councillors, I'll be voting against the proposal at the end, but I see this as somehow moving forward with a lot of the councillors' support. So I want to do my part to make sure this is strong. We cannot pitch this as an economic development initiative to a neighborhood that needs support without having full-time, sustainable, well-paying jobs that are protected. Yes. We cannot pitch this as an economic development initiative for a neighborhood like Rexdale and North Etobicoke without providing childcare and taking away barriers for employment, particularly for women and racialized women and people living in low-income areas. We cannot pitch this as an economic development initiative until we take care of needs in those communities, including mental health and addiction counseling support that could be placed in there as a way to wrap around the kind of services that can be available for both workers as well as people who are going to be using this. So we have to be able to do this in a very, very careful way to be able to invest into initiatives that city can do to make sure that that area and the young people and the most vulnerable, most marginalized community members of North Etobicoke, which is not very dissimilar from my area, which is in the northeast corner, and this is in the northwest corner. We have very similar challenges, and I hope that pitching this as an employment opportunity for young people and local people gets done by taking advantage of the situations that exist in the community. So I want to caution all of us that we don't want to be here 10, 15 years down the road looking at social problems that we have actually exacerbated in a neighborhood that is already looking for ways to get out of poverty, looking for ways to get out of systemic discrimination and racism. We cannot continue to provide these things as a solution without having a full, comprehensive structural support that is necessary when problem gambling is introduced in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue, I just want to welcome the grade 10 students from Havergale College in the ward of Councillor Kristen Carmichael-Greb. Welcome. Councillor De Beermaker to speak.
Hi, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be supporting the report, certainly in general. I'll be supporting the motions by Councillor Bailão and by Councillor Thompson. I think that this is a very well thought out report. The City of Toronto gave, the City Council gave a number of conditions that we thought, if this facility is going to be located south of Steeles Avenue in this very vibrant city, we wanted to make sure that these investors would come here and make the city richer and more vibrant. And I think when we look at the conditions that we've attached, I think we're achieving that. I think there are some requests for improvements and setting the bar even higher. And I actually think the company and the investors can actually do that. And I think everything that's being requested of the corporation that I'm going to vote for today, I think actually makes the facility stronger, makes the business stronger, makes the corporation stronger, and makes our community stronger. I had the privilege, along with Councillor Mihevc and Councillor Perruzza, to go to a Toronto Community Benefits Network session where they talked about the entire spectrum of how they're making sure that all businesses, whether it's building the Finch LRT, a casino like this, building out a subway out east, whether we, during the construction process of $9 billion of future transit funding, how we make sure that when we build facilities, when we build infrastructure, that the entire community benefits and that everybody becomes stronger. And when I look at, I think it was, I wrote down because it was new to me, condition number 16. Here's what we're asking the investors to do. And this is what they've agreed to, and this is, I think, a very good thing for the City of Toronto. We have a clause that says we're encouraging the hiring and purchasing of skilled service providers that resemble the diversity and multicultural makeup of Toronto. I don't think that's an onerous request or condition to ask any company. That they make sure that the providers and the people they hire resemble the diversity and the multicultural makeup of Toronto. In their employment targets, we're actually telling the investors that are coming into the city, people in the local community actually want jobs. I think in general, when you open up a facility as large as this with thousands of jobs, I think by definition, and without even any conditions, a lot of the people are going to be local. People in Pickering and Whitby and Ajax and Scarborough will probably not want to work at this facility as much as people in North Etobicoke and people in North York that are much closer to the facility, because in general people try to find jobs close to where they work. But I think to ask the corporation to hire local and or groups that reflect the diversity of the city, that's a pretty broad range. I don't think it's going to be a challenge for the employer to find that. It's not going to be simple. I think I've heard somebody say earlier today that, oh, this license that the company's getting is a license to print money. I don't actually think it's that simple. People do go bankrupt. Running a facility this large with this many staff, with all the dynamics that is involved in gaming, I think is actually a very complicated, very difficult challenge. There's a competitive bid, so a lot of people were bidding on this. So when I look at it, I think it's actually going to strengthen the city. I think the request to incorporate a daycare center into a facility or facilities someday that might reach 1 million square feet, you're looking at a construction cost of at least $250 million, if not $300 or $400 million, to put in a daycare center. Again, I think it's not an outrageous demand, and again, I think it'll, for the employer, in the end, at the end of the day, will actually be very happy in 5 years from now or 8 years from now when they walk into that daycare center and their own kids are taking advantage of that daycare center. So, Madam Speaker, I will not be supporting the motion. I think there's if there is a motion on the floor to restrict the hours of operation to 18 hours a day, but I will certainly support the motions of my colleagues, Councillor Bailão and Councillor Thompson, to make sure we strengthen this and make sure that when this is built, it's the best we can do for the people who live in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mammoliti?
Madam Speaker, I don't have any motions that I want to pass, but I do want to remind everyone that this is a decision that's already been made by council, that a casino be established in this part of the city. And it's what's happened since is now we're having to deal with some of the crossing of the T's and dotting with the I's. And a part of that is the community benefit package.
Sorry, Councillor Mammoliti, hold on. If I can please ask members of council and staff to please try to keep it down. It's getting very noisy in the council chambers again. Please. Thank you.
And so now we've got in front of us a package that people keep adding to, and I think that there's many reasons for that. Some people actually believe that many of the things that you're adding here to this will be good for the community. And then I believe that there's others in the chamber that are adding the costs associated to this so that the proponent gets scared off and leaves completely because they don't want the casino in the first place. And I think that that's the part of it that we all need to be worried about right now, because that's exactly what's happening on the floor of council right now. Okay, the same people that are adding all of the costs to this now and adding on to the community benefit package are going to vote against the casino. They already said that. And I think this is a part of the strategy to stop the casino, because if you ask the proponent right now if he's worried if this thing might cost a little too much and whether or not they'll pull the plug, they'll probably say, yeah, they're really worried about this. So I'd ask all of you to be cautious about that, because that's going on right now on the floor of council. The other part to this equation is in 1990, the province decided to introduce casinos to the province of Ontario, and I'm not sure if any of you remember that, but I'd also ask you to remember who introduced the package to Ontario, and it was the NDP government that introduced casinos to this province to begin with. And so I supported it when I was there, because quite frankly it was one of my ideas to help us with the economy. And more importantly, Windsor at the time, if any of you remember what Windsor went through with their economy, it was a ghost town. Windsor had nowhere to go. Jobs were disappearing, the banks were moving out, everything was going wrong with Windsor. And it was actually the casino that saved Windsor in the early 90s. It saved Windsor's economy. And what happened to Windsor after that? The economy went south. Yes, it did. But why? Because Detroit introduced their own version of a casino. And so the economy itself was shared with just south of Windsor. But my point that I want to make is that it was the casino that created the jobs, it was the casino that helped Windsor, and it was the casino that gave them a little life and hope. Now, on the northwest pocket of this city, it has...
By a fellow NDP'er.
You shouldn't call him, he's not an NDP, he's a conservative.
Stop talking to George.
It's a fight amongst the NDP caucus here.
He's not NDP.
Yes, he is.
He's he was almost a conservative.
NDP
he was almost a conservative
brothers in the
cabinet
legislature.
He's upset because I wasn't hanging out with him back then. I wasn't hanging out with him back then. I was hanging out with the Conservatives.
Okay,
He's
Councillor Mammoliti, hold on.
After 28 years. He's still upset after 28 years.
Okay, Councillor Mammoliti, please.
Yeah.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
Can't have these two NDP members.
Councillor de Bearmaker, please.
Glenn, you have to show some leadership.
Oh.
I think we need to retake the vote on the vice chair here.
Are we finished? Okay, Councillor Mammoliti, can you continue?
No, they don't want to hear much of what I have to say, but what I have to say does make sense. And most people that have been around as long as I have know that. And so we need the casino in the City of Toronto, and we need it with all the tabs associated to this. Etobicoke needs it. The economy in this city, in the northwest of the city, needs this casino. There's a reality at play here, and that's jobs. And it will create jobs, and nobody's arguing that it's not going to, because it's going to. There's a lot of things that I will support with the community benefit package, but one of the things that I'm really skeptical about is what everybody's considering today, and that's a daycare. Great. If the daycare is just strictly for the workers, I'll support it. If it's not, it means that the gamblers are going to drop off their kids and they're going to go and gamble while someone else is watching their children. Right? I've got some huge concerns with that. Okay, and that's what the daycare will do. So let's be clear about who it's going to help. If it's going to help the workers, then let's be specific. As far as the rest of this package, I don't agree on the rest of the costs because I know what's going on here. You're trying to defeat it. You're trying to get the proponent to be scared off and leave. And I want to remind anybody that's been around here a long time as well that the Downsview lands, Councillor Al-Jamari and others will remember this, the Downsview lands were scheduled to have, in my opinion, I voted in favor of it back then, it was a wonderful venue that was going to be established there. That's the days of Mel Lassman. And what scared the proponent off was exactly what's happening on the floor today. There were just too many costs associated to them, and they got scared off and pulled the plug.
Councillor Mammoliti. Councillor Perruzza, can you stop interrupting? Okay, Councillor Al-Jamari, can you go up to him and slap him? Okay. Councillor Perks.
Thank you, Speaker. I think that we've lost the plot. When we were debating casinos and gaming 5 years ago, we looked very carefully at some of the questions around what casinos are, what their impacts are, what the consequences are. And we've lost all of that, and we've replaced it with this very neutral language that disguises what's actually in front of us. We describe what's going on here as entertainment and gaming. After our last debate about casinos, I took it on myself to go to a couple of them. It's not entertainment, it's not gaming. It's sad, lonely people staring at a screen, feeding money into a machine that's designed to distract them. That's not fun, it's not entertainment, it's not going to a movie or a ball game or playing cards with your family or in any way entertaining or gaming. It's a machine designed to take money away from people. Another piece of the language that we use with this is that somehow adults have choice. And we can't be interfering with adults' right to go and gamble if they want to. Well, No, go look at a casino. It's actually all designed to take your choices away from you. There are no clocks. The exit signs are obscured. The room is dark, and flashing lights go off, and bells go off. Everything is designed to disorient you, to take away your sense of time, to lower your function, your brain function. The term problem gambler suggests that there's some of us who have something wrong with us and lose money, but most normal people wouldn't. That's also false. The gambling industry hires cognitive neuroscientists who design the games specifically to create a rhythm of small rewards so that you are no longer thinking about the value of the money you're feeding into the machine. You're thinking about the reward cycle. And they speed it up. The machines are actually designed. They can tell when a player's been there for a while to speed up the reward cycle so that you further lose your higher brain function and are just living in your brain stem, seeking that reward cycle. That's nothing to do with being a problem gambler. That's a science designed to cull a few of us out who are more susceptible to the reward cycle and steal their money because we're too cowardly to raise public funds in a way that's actually fair. This is also described as an investment in economic development. For heaven's sake, can't we think of things we need to invest in that actually develop our economy? Do we not know that we need more street nurses? Do we not know that we need more skilled tradespeople? Do we not know that we need to manufacture things in Southern Ontario? How on earth is setting up machines to take money away from people who are wired in a more vulnerable way than the majority of us any kind of economic development? How does that make us stronger? I'm really exhausted with the way this council has completely lost the plot. We're actually making a decision to pick people's pockets, to act like vampires, to bleed them dry, so that we can get a few jobs and keep our taxes a little bit lower. I'm ashamed we're even debating it.
Councillor Ainslie. Councillor Ainslie to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not going to be supporting this item either. I didn't support it when we looked at Downtown Casino. I didn't support it when we had this vote almost 4 years ago, and I'm not going to be supporting this now. I will thank the community benefits groups, the people that came in and spoke about what they need. We're heard loud and clear. They were looking for a living wage and a daycare. And to brighten up Councillor DeBearmaker's day, I'm going to tell him a little story about the only time I went to Las Vegas. My wife and I went to see a comedian. And we were in this beautiful hall. It was marble and brass, and I'd never seen anything like it. And the comedian started off and he said, how many people here gambled today? He says, don't lie, there's no kids here. How many gambled? 90% of the people in that room gambled. And then he said, you know, I've been all over the world. I've never been in an auditorium this beautiful. I'm glad everybody gambled and had a great time. He said, how many of you lost? He says, once again, your kids aren't here. How many of you lost? 90% of the people in that room put up their hand. And he looked around and he goes, now I know why a casino can build such a beautiful auditorium and a palatial building like this. Everybody's coming here and giving them their money. That happens in Las Vegas. It happens at Atlantic City. It happens at Woodbine. When I was questioning staff yesterday about community benefits, because somebody said to me, you know, the casino is giving us $10 million in community benefits. Staff said they have no idea what the community benefits are. They haven't put a cost on it. When I asked about the social costs to the city and what that involves, because you can look at the rate of gambling, addictive gambling. There's all kinds of studies that have been done about the suicide rates around casinos. We talked a couple of years ago about increasing our police costs. Staff also had no idea what the social costs were. Casino fees we're getting, I think it was roughly $50 or $60 million. Somebody can correct me. You know, that's great. But I'll point out a study that was done in 2011. And it was done by a professor in the United States. He's done them all over North America, Professor Steven Siegel. One of the things that he points out is that for every three video slot machines, and there's going to be 3,000 machines are in Woodbine right now. You can look it up. It's on their website. They tell you to come to Woodbine and be dazzled by it. The professor here, and this is a 2011 study, points out for that every 3 video slot machines you have, you annually lose 2 jobs in the economy. And that's not the local economy. That's spread out across the city. And the reason for that is because, and these are 2011 figures again, every three slot machines take $215,000 out of the economy on an annual basis. So when you look at those numbers at Woodbine, the money that's coming out of discretionary money from our residents, not just in this area that has the highest number of neighborhood improvement areas, right across that city, is that works out to about 1,000 jobs in this city a year. The Woodbine Group, I understand, they've offered 800 jobs. That's a one-time deal. Video slot machines take the disposable money out of our economy, the equivalent of 1,000 jobs each and every year. That's why a few years ago when we're looking at the downtown casinos, First Capital Group, which is one of the largest commercial real estate holders, retail developers in this city, they said at the end of their letter, "We strongly urge City Council to vote no to any proposed resolution for a casino. First Capital Realty is prepared to take all necessary steps to challenge the outcome." And this was around Liberty Village. Councillor Layton can point this out. They were very concerned about Woodbine. If you go up to Woodbine, once again, one of the largest areas where we have neighborhood improvement areas, we're trying to get the economy going. If First Capital has to deal with this in Liberty Village, how do you expect them to try and develop the swaths of empty land that we're told are around the Woodbine Casino? They're going to have a huge difficulty with it. All of those costs combined for the money coming in and the money that's going to leave our city, while we're trying to get the best deal for the residents of that area, that's one thing, and I think we're doing an admirable job of trying to achieve that. The effects on the economy and the city on a whole are very negative, and people have said to me, you know, that's spread out across the city. Well, if the economy is great, that's one thing. If we face a recession and we're still seeing this income, disposable income leaving our city, that's another thing. And for all those variables and all those reasons, I'm still prepared not to support what's before us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor DeGiorgio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm really astounded by some of the comments that I've heard on this particular item. When people try to compare a major development in an area that is very, very underutilized, a large piece of land that is underutilized, and they try to compare it with a piece of property down in the core of the city, and they say, you know, a use in the core of the city just isn't right, notwithstanding that it could bring us a huge development in the form of a convention center, that we could become a world city. That's not enough. In the core of the city, we don't want a casino. We don't need a casino in the core of the city, is what people said. We don't need it because we can attract high-quality jobs without attracting a casino. But Rexdale is not in the same place. Rexdale, we have a huge piece of property that is underutilized, and no one is rushing to put in high-quality jobs like they are in the city of Toronto. So maybe we should start talking about, let's put a moratorium on development in the old city of Toronto, in the core of the city of Toronto, because we want to attract investors in a very large underutilized site. And if that's not a viable option, let's go under the Planning Act and say, look, we need to pass a community improvement plan under Section 28 of the Planning Act, where the government will make major investments to bring in the development that's required up there that these people want to see there. They want to see high-quality jobs. And it's within our jurisdiction to put in high-quality jobs. But they're not bringing forward motions like that. They're not saying to the provincial government, we want high-quality jobs, and we're prepared to pay. We're prepared to raise property taxes to bring high-quality jobs there. What are you, the province? You should pass that motion. Go to the province and ask them, what are you, the province, prepared to pay to bring in high-quality jobs? And the province will say, go shove it. Because what they're willing to do is bring in lotteries. Maybe charge $10 for a lottery ticket. That'll bring more revenues in. But who buys lottery tickets? The same people that you claim you want to try and help. So you won't bring a casino there, but you'll raise the price of lottery tickets maybe. I go back way when I said I don't want lotteries at all, because I know who buys lottery tickets. So what can we really do? How do we deliver something now? Because something is needed now. The government's not prepared to do it. Private enterprise is coming to the table. Yes, they have a model that they have to abide by. They have a business model. And they're saying, look, for us to address the need up there, here's what we're prepared to do. And people are saying, not good enough, not good enough. Find an alternative. Show me another vehicle that will bring the benefits today that are being proposed today. Show me another vehicle, and I will support that other vehicle. But there is no such other vehicle. There is no other vehicle. Only private enterprise can come and help, and they may not be able to help to the extent that we want. But that's not reason to turn them away. It really just isn't reason to turn them away. So I would ask you to support Councillor Bailão's motion, all of the recommendations put forward by the Executive Committee, and one of Councillor Thomas's motions, the first one, I believe. Councillor Thompson, sorry.
I have a motion.
Thank you.
I can do too.
Thank you. Councillor Karygiannis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have a motion, if staff can put it on, please. Madam Speaker, the motion is that part of the proceeds that we make get used in order to have communities apply for, as well as boards of education and others, that we discourage people from gambling. Madam Speaker, whether it's Niagara Falls, whether it's Aurelia, where it's Windsor, gambling will go on. And I don't buy this thing that says the closer you are, the more often you would go. I got buses that come into my ward, and they park and they wait. I got buses that come from Niagara Falls. I got buses that come from Aurelia. And I recently heard that there's buses considering coming in from Windsor. They drive up, people get on, they watch their movies, they do whatever they do, and they take a trip down to Niagara Falls, and they play. There's high addiction within some communities. And in those communities, I've seen and I've heard families lose it all. I've seen families lose their homes. But whether it's Woodbine, or it's Niagara Falls, or it's Aurelia, the problem will exist. We can say we're not going to do it in Toronto, and we can go to our constituents and say, guess what? We did not allow the casino, so please vote for me. What you're not telling your constituents is that there is a bus waiting, and I'll tell you exactly in my words waiting, at Bamberg Circle, which is at Steeles and Warden. They drive up every hour, they park right there, people walk on. I've seen people walk on with their canes. Now, I hear what Councillor Perruzza says, but he's in the dream world. He lives in La La Land. So,
They give you free lunch.
They give you free lunch. So, you get on the bus, you drive to Niagara Falls for an hour and a half, you get free lunch, you play your money, you waste your money, and then you come back home. You've done a day. So, you have more opportunity to do a day. And people say these are lonesome people that have nothing to do. And that might be the case. But there's also people that are addicted to this. And people that will go and do it, doesn't matter what you say. I will tell you one thing. I will speak about my community, my heritage. In my heritage, we gamble. We go out and play cards. And people in my community that say this is not the case, I say to them, come talk to me. I know, I go to the casino and I just walk through. I don't even sit down. Because long time ago, I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't sit at that table. I wouldn't sit at the blackjack, I wouldn't sit at the slots. And I'm able to do this. But however, there's people that cannot do it. There's people that are addicted and people that go to it. Madam Chair, I'll tell you one thing. Councillor Perucha is living in a la la land. He keeps shooting his mouth off. There's the la la land, there's the reality. The reality is that if we can get jobs created in our area, if we can have development happen close to us, that's one of the things that we're responsible for. We cannot be responsible for the people that get on the bus to go and gamble. We cannot be responsible for people that have an addiction. We cannot be responsible for a lot of things. However, we can be responsible by supporting a motion that says part of those funds that we're going to make do go and help people that are helping others in order not to have gambling addiction. And do go to make sure that we educate our children, educate our families, educate our stakeholders in order to promote no gambling. And the la la land, we don't want to bring it over here. We don't want to build it over here. Guess what? The buses are there. More buses are coming. And Councillor Perucha, I am sure you want to get one of those buses. However, I'd rather have it close. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. We do have a question for you for Councillor Ford, clarification of the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Just clarification on the motion through you to the councillor. If it could be put up on the screen, if that's possible.
Just get, can you give Councillor, yeah, there it is.
Thank you very much. So you're looking at 1% of incremental revenue going to educational institutions to educate people about gambling addiction, which is great. I'm just wondering, Councillor, are you looking for an added 1% from
1% of the net
on what we have in the agreement?
Yes, 1% to be given to institutions, to schools, to school boards in order to help.
And that is of the current revenue that is expected to come into
this?
Yes, okay.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson, clarification of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So what I'm trying to understand is, are you looking at funding existing organizations, because there's many, or are you looking at creating a program for new organizations?
Existing organizations as well as other stakeholders that might want to apply.
So you're aware there's a number of addiction services and addiction...
Oh, I'm quite aware of them. I have a few of them in my ward. Matter of fact, I have somebody...
Actually, I was still speaking.
Excuse me, ask the question, please. Let me finish.
I wasn't finished my question.
Okay, go ahead.
So you're aware there's a number of organizations already in place that do this type of work, federally, provincially, locally here in Toronto. Are you aware of that?
Are you finished? Because if you're not, I'll give you more time.
Okay.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Matter of fact, I've worked with many...
Madam Chair.
No, Councillor Karygiannis, please.
Madam Chair.
Please show some respect. Please.
Madam Chair, in all due respect, when the councillor was asking the question, she had finished, and she says, I haven't finished. So that's why I asked her if she's finished, so I can actually answer her.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Show some respect.
Madam Chair, I'm showing a lot of respect.
No, you're not. You're being very rude.
That's your opinion, that's not mine.
Okay, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is, there are a number of organizations already in place that do this work federally, provincially, and locally. And so are you looking to fund those, or are you looking to create new initiatives within the City of Toronto that would receive this funding? That's what I'd like to understand, if you're duplicating or if you're trying to beef up the organizations already in place by providing additional funding.
I thank you for your question. This is the third time that I had it, and I'll give you one answer. And maybe if you want me to repeat it, I certainly will. There is organizations that exist. I'm aware of them. I've worked with them in the past in my ward. I work with them throughout the city. Those organizations that exist certainly can use more help, and more help is needed, and this is an opportunity for them to apply to get some extra funding.
Madam Chair, I'd like an apology.
Yes.
To what?
Councillor Karygiannis.
What?
Councillor
I'm sorry, you know what? If you don't like my tone, I'm sorry about that.
but Councillor Karygiannis,
Madam
please.
Speaker, she asked the question 3 times, I have answered.
Councillor Karygiannis, please, can you please apologize because you were very rude?
You know what, if she thinks that I was rude, I apologize.
I think you were rude, and I think other members of council feel the same way. Show
Madam
some
Chair,
respect.
I think that you've got it out for me, and you're sort of picking out.
I don't have
And
it
I
out
wanna
for you,
apologize
Councillor
your thoughts, Madam
Karygiannis.
Speaker. Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
My God. Councillor, point of order, that was Councillor Doucette, sorry, okay.
Madam Speaker, I do not appreciate the tone being used by fellow councillors. We are supposed to be respectful to everyone, whether we agree or disagree, and a councillor is allowed to ask another councillor questions, and if that councillor feels he, she may have answered it 3 times, you can say that, but use it in a respectful manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mammoliti.
I heard Councillor Karygiannis say that if the councillor was felt that if she felt slighted, that he would apologize. I heard him apologize. So I don't know what all this is about. If you're starting to get into a tone, perhaps, on how somebody might speak, let's put a list of things together, Madam Speaker, that are appropriate and not appropriate, because you can't keep adding these things every time somebody speaks and you don't like what they have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Mammoliti. First of all, Councillor Karygiannis did not apologize to Councillor Robinson, and it's not that a member of council does not like the answer or the way the questions are being asked. It's the tone of the councillor and the lack of respect when he addresses members of council. It's unacceptable. So, in my opinion, it's unacceptable. Yes, Councillor Karygiannis.
Madam Speaker, your job is to guide traffic through here, and your job is to make sure that you keep the order. Your job, respectfully speaking, is not to quote-unquote say what others can or cannot do. And if you don't like my tone of voice, you can speak to me privately. However, your job, and if you look at it, if...
Okay, Councillor Karygiannis. No, you're finished as far as I'm concerned. No, you're finished. You're finished. Yeah, you're finished. I'm sure that this tone is not tolerated in the House of Commons in Ottawa. Councillor Crisanti. Councillor Crisanti. Councillor Crisanti.
I'm here whenever you're ready.
Yes,
Madam
I know.
Speaker, and I think
Go
my
ahead.
colleagues here, when this discussion is over,
Yes.
there's a discussion here right now.
Okay, please. Okay. I'll restart your time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
So, Madam Speaker, just to be clear, in case anybody's wondering here today, I rise in support of staff recommendations, obviously including the supplementary recommendations that are in front of us as well. We've certainly come a long way on this particular item, but I now, Madam Speaker, we're in a good place. We're in a place to do the right thing for Etobicoke North, an area that I represent together with my colleague, Councillor Ford. A lot of work has been done on this file. A lot of things have been negotiated. So when I say that we're in a good place, my colleagues could rest assured that Councillor Ford and my office has overseen a lot of this as well and has worked very closely with our community and staff. So on that note, though, I also want to thank staff for the work that they've done, the City Manager's Office. I want to thank our Etobicoke Planning Office, and some other people that I think should be mentioned by name. John Livy, he's not here, but he was very active in that file, and Chris Brillinger, who is here right now, and Jay Paleja, Neil Creswell, who's here, and the late Peter Notaro. I feel obligated to mention that because of the tremendous amount of time that he put into it, the dedication that he had on the file, and the countless number of meetings that we had in my office with Peter. And I also would like to thank Mayor Tory and his office for his support, for recognizing the positive impact that this development will have in our Etobicoke North community and, of course, citywide. And then there's all the stakeholders that have done, I think, a phenomenal job in helping us get to where we are here today. Our community partners, of course, including the OLG and Great Canadian and Brookfield. So let's be clear that the recommendations that are before us are ultimately to support revitalization, attract development, and create jobs. That's key. And while at the same time protecting, that some of us forget, the 7,500 jobs that are currently there in the horse racing industry at Woodbine. So in 2015, we agreed to have expanded gaming, and we agreed that there's going to be 21 conditions attached to those to that concept of expanded gaming. But I also want to be clear that that is the catalyst that's driving this forward, that's attracting the development that we desperately need up in Etobicoke North, where 700 acres have been sitting, as mentioned by other councillors, very much underutilized. But it's not just about the revenue that it's going to bring, and it's going to the revenue too, to be clear, because I've heard some very low numbers, are upwards of $40 to $50 million, and I think that's going to be a lot more. But it's a lot more than that. It's about having a first-of-its-kind community benefits agreement. We've heard it from staff. This is a first-of-its-kind. It's precedent-setting. And in addition to that, there's going to be oversight by a number of different committees that have been formed, and a lot of work went into creating these committees as well. So, as mentioned, this is a catalyst that will bring that future development, will bring renewed hope for revitalization of the 700-acre site, which will make it a premier entertainment center and a destination place. So effectively, we're not here to support a casino or such. We're here to just endorse the 21 conditions that staff has worked hard in ensuring that every single condition was met. And we're taking an existing site where gambling already exists. All forms of gambling already exist there. And also, we need to help them remain competitive so we can protect the existing jobs that are there. So now we have an opportunity to make a decision today. A decision that will move this project and this investment that we desperately need up in Etobicoke North to revitalize this community, to ensure that jobs are going to be there, but also to create a business case for other major infrastructures like the extension of the Finch LRT that ultimately will connect with Pearson Airport and a new GO station at Woodbine along the Kitchener line. So I'm asking colleagues around this room to support our community in Etobicoke North. And one more thing I would just want to say about daycare. There are, I spoke with our daycare staff, and they made it clear to me that there are 5 new daycare facilities, both in Ward 1 and in Ward 2, within the next 12 to 18 months
that are going to be there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matlow.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I want to begin by acknowledging the work of Councillors Ford and Vinsanti, because I recognize that this debate is about fundamental values for us all. And we all have, I think, very strong opinions about gaming and gambling. We also have very strong opinions about the import of providing jobs and opportunities to residents, and no more so than in neighborhoods like Rexdale, where there has not been that opportunity. And so I recognize that where Councillors Vinsanti and Ford are coming from is that value, that I believe they earnestly want to support the residents and provide opportunities. I must say, though, that everything that I've read and everything that I've personally experienced, and both through the data that I've seen, the reports that I've read, and through anecdotal experiences of family and friends, I just can't support moving forward with the casino. But I say that in context that I know that where they're coming from is the best interest of their community. I was just in, ironically, I was just in Las Vegas recently, but not to go to Vegas. My sister and I flew down to Vegas Airport so that we could drive out to Zion National Park. And we had a weekend of a really remarkable experience. We hiked through mountains and walked through canyons and breathed fresh air and had time to reflect and time to bond and talk with each other. Our mom died 3 years ago, and we had time to really just talk about our childhood and our dreams and aspirations for our lives and for my daughter. And that was the kind of quality time that I really valued. And we were leaving from Vegas Airport back to Toronto that Monday morning. So on Sunday night, I slept over in Las Vegas. And we walked around, and I don't gamble, so I didn't go to the casinos to take part in that. But I was fascinated by the place, and I was walking around and just taking it all in. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And when I walked through a casino, and actually at one point it was 5 in the morning because I woke up early in the morning and I was getting ready to go to the airport. I saw so many people just sitting there like zombies. And you can smoke in those casinos there. So they're chain smoking and they're drinking alcohol at like 5 in the morning, just throwing their money into these machines. And it just saddened me so much to see these people go through this experience. And then I was sort of juxtaposing it with the experience that I just had, like hiking up mountains and having time to actually talk and be with people I love. And there they are, even though they might be sitting only feet away from another human, they're actually just staring at the screen, throwing all the money that they may not even have enough of into this machine. And as Councillor Perks said, and Councillor Cressy and others, they're designed to do that, and we know that, and I don't think any of us pretend that they don't. I mean, that's their business. That's their industry. Just like cigarettes were created to be addictive. And there are industries that really do, they're there to be parasitical. They're there deliberately to take from you. But I also recognize, I spoke with our city solicitor, I spoke with our city manager, and I recognize that no matter what we do today, we did as a council agree to move forward with this project. And we're at a point now, Councillor Mammoliti, about to say this, and believe it or not, he spoke well, and I think he nailed an important point, which is that we're not debating whether or not we have a casino today, we're debating what conditions and what we want the arrangement to be like. And that was astute, and that was helpful, and it was a good reminder. So I think we have a responsibility to do everything we can to support conditions that will mitigate the harm. Councillor Cressy's motion, again, I was there like 5 in the morning seeing people drinking alcohol, chain smoking, and throwing their money away. Why would you want to support that? Whether you want jobs or support an industry there or do something for the economy, I don't understand any argument that would suggest that we want people at 5 in the morning throwing their money away. Why would you want that? I don't understand that argument, but I'm asking you to consider Councillor Cressy's motion. And ultimately, I personally, not only on behalf of my constituents, but just as my personal values, where I've seen people lose their lives and see their lives collapse over problem gambling. I just can't push a green button today. And I hope you, on moving forward, and I hope you understand why. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perruzza.
You're okay with that? Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I once supported legislation to. Oh, I have 2 motions, Speaker. Yeah, sorry. Please, I'd like to introduce them. And the clerk will put them on the screen. They're easy to read, self-evident, and very supportable. And one of them is an amendment to Councillor Thompson's motion, which states very clearly there and has a very sort of clear objective. And we're in agreement on that. Councillor Thompson is absolutely good with that one, so that's good. So Speaker, as I was saying, I once, as a younger man, supported basically, changing the laws in the province of Ontario to allow casinos. I remember being in the Bob Rae government along with my good NDP colleague back then, Councillor Giorgio Mammoliti, who was very, very faithful and dedicated to the party at the time, and was very much a Bob Rae hanger-on. And he too supported, and we got convinced at that time by Dave Cook and Bob Ray that Windsor, which was struggling because of the auto industry, absolutely needed a casino in order to be able to make ends meet. And they convinced us, and the majority of us at the time, to support changing the laws in Ontario, which then permitted casinos, both Windsor, Aurelia, Niagara Falls, and some of the others that have crept up and down. But I've since had a considerable amount of time to grow, and you gain experience as you grow older. You meet more people. You get to know a little more. And casinos, basically, and ironically, it's one of the only laws that was changed by the NDP and its dutiful members at the time that actually survived the Harris era. And that in itself should say something about what we did. But it was a dark day in Ontario back then. And I have to tell you, I love Councillor Crisanti. I really do. Friend of mine, I love Councillor Karygiannis. Often shares one of his fine Cuban cigars with me. I do, and I don't take opposition and stand opposite them on this issue because of them or because of some of the things that they believe, and I give them all the credit for trying to do for their neighborhoods and their area what they absolutely can. But the problem with a casino is it's an easy way to kind of like make money, right? It's a no-brainer. You know, you bring in a casino, it's kind of like, people with money, and you drop it in an area. And where do casinos make money? They make money from poor people. They don't make money from a whole bunch of rich people. You know, Casino Royale, James Bond, right? Whole bunch of like rich guys going in and playing at a high-stakes poker game and driving fancy cars, and you got the girls and you got the boys and you got the men. But if that was a casino, by all means, knock yourself out. I'd be the first one here jumping up and down saying, yeah, go ahead, knock yourselves out. That's not what a casino is. That's not the image of a casino. A casino draws from a local neighborhood. You make it more convenient for people. You know, that 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid who's going to go out with his buddies at night and say, to a movie, his buddies say, hey, listen, why don't we go check out the new casino? That's what they do. And then before you know it, several of them are going back on a regular basis and bringing their other buddies with them. That's the problem. That's the problem with casinos. And they keep drawing a bigger and bigger and bigger local pool of people who become problem gamblers. And then they get exposed to all kinds of other things. So when you add that up, and quite frankly, Speaker, I have yet to see a significant study that says that Windsor, Niagara Falls, or Aurelia...
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Oh, we have a question for you. Councillor Mammoliti?
George, I know you tore up your membership sometime
later. There you go. So you already knew the question. I want to thank you for reminding me of that nightmare in the early 90s. I want to thank you for that. But I wanted you to remember that I did rip up my card. Did I not?
Well, you're asking a question.
No, he brought it up. He brought it up. He mentioned my name. No. He talked about wonderful days in 1990.
Come on, Councillor Mammoliti.
You don't remember. Do you remember how you voted on the casino back then, Councillor Peruzzo?
Yes. All right. No. No. Okay, Councillor Mammoliti, you're up to ask a question on clarification of the motion. Do you want to ask that question or not? We're not to ask him about what his membership is. That's not on the table. Can we put the motion up on the screen? Councillor Perruzza says yes.
put my mic on?
Yes, just one moment. Okay. It's,
I got to watch my tone.
okay, Councillor
And my body,
Mamalini.
and my body language.
Councillor
Or I'll be ruled
Mamalini,
out of order.
it's the highlighted portion that he's amending.
Yeah, no, it's more on. See, this is the part that I have some concerns about. I started when I spoke. I spoke about how added costs are going to scare the proponent away, right? So you've got a motion here that says the LRT should be extended over to the airport. Who's going to pay for that?
Well, what I said in my speech yesterday with respect to, for example, Smart Track, I believe that these are provincial government projects, and the provincial government should essentially be paying for them. Look, if I was the Premier of the province of Ontario and a local mayor came to me and said, look, I'm happy to contribute billions of dollars to build you 6 platforms on your line, no strings attached, I'd give you a freaking parade. I would.
So who would pay for it?
I just said that.
The province.
Yeah.
And so this now is a request to the province, or because it doesn't say that in the motion, right?
You were happy to make any amendments you like.
So those of us that want to vote for this are assuming that you're asking the proponent to pay for this, because I think that's what this alludes to. Are you trying to scare the proponent away from building the casino, Councillor?
I think you heard our staff say yesterday that they are in conversation with both the proponents and Metrolinx on extending the LRT through Woodbine to the airport because they believe that it's a good thing to do from a transit initiative. So as those conversations evolve, it'll be clear on how that, might ultimately be paid for.
So it is the proponent that you're looking...
The proponent benefits from an extension of such a line. I would think that the proponent would be, it would be in their interest to actually contribute to that.
Let me be very specific with this question, because I think, and you should answer it clearly, right? Instead of rambling on. Are you with this motion, are you trying to scare off the proponent like many other motions here are trying to do?
I just explained to you, I just told you, that the proponent has actually said through our staff who communicated to us that they are happy to contribute to both the GO station and an LRT line by means of land, I think, and by means of money, because they understand that they benefit. They get to draw more poor people into their casino if they do that. Easier, just with a bus.
Thank you very much. Your time's up. Councillor DeGiorgio, did you want clarification of the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess my first clarification would be, how do you see the LRT being extended to the airport, somehow creating the quality of jobs that are being proposed under this proposal, or any kind of jobs, as a matter of fact, on that site? How will that help over and above how the current proposal helps?
Yeah, I've always believed that ending the Finch LRT at Humber College creates a bit of a stump. I think its ultimate terminus, everybody gets that, should be the airport, the biggest employment hub in and around the city of Toronto. So the airport employs a great deal of people. So access to it, it's a major transportation hub. It's a way to connect the Finch LRT in the northern part of the city of Toronto with ultimately the Eglinton and the UPS Express rail service there. It just provides a better flow to transit in and around the city of Toronto. One of the drawbacks to all of that, it also provides easier access for poor people to the casino.
Right.
That's the downside to it, and that's the one that gives me some trepidation.
Councillor DeGiorgio, I think he's clarified his motion. One more clarification.
My second point of clarification is simply this, because I'm looking at how it affects the issue before us. I'm intrigued by his experience in the provincial government, where they looked at a bunch of ways of revitalizing Windsor, and I'm wondering what other incentives did the provincial government look at to try and revitalize Windsor that they discarded? Do you remember?
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, both of you. You can, Councillor Wong Tam to speak. Point of order, Councillor Thompson.
Speaker, I'm just wondering, in light of Councillor Peruzza's 7A, is it the appointed time now for me to withdraw motion 5B, because it's reflected in the new composition that is now incorporated in motion 7A.
Okay, so
should I do this now, or?
Yeah, you can do it now. Councillor Thompson is asking that his motion 5B be withdrawn. All in
May I
favor?
have a recorded vote on this, please?
Recorded vote. 5B. 5B. Recorded vote. Motion 5B by Councillor Thompson, he's asking that it be withdrawn, so we're voting on him withdrawing that motion.
Councillor Peruzza, your vote, please.
Councillor Mammoliti, please.
Oh, and it was
The motion is withdrawn. The vote is 39-2.
okay. Thank you, Councillor Wong Tam to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I will be supporting some of the motions, not all of them, but certainly I will have some difficulty supporting the expansion of gambling at Woodbine, and for a couple of reasons. One is that I don't believe the casino actually is going to bring greater prosperity and economic opportunities for the neighborhood in the long run. Perhaps in the short run, you'll see the creation of jobs, and perhaps in the short run, there will be some opportunities to provide some limited economic benefit. But we've seen casinos around the world basically scrub a neighborhood from any other economic prosperity. You won't find that rhythm and pattern of vibrant streets with vibrant retail or vibrant pedestrian activity. That just doesn't happen when you have a casino that takes all the energy, all the talent, and every other resource and puts it into a building and then hermetically seals it. And then it's designed to keep people in. And the only folks that will end up making the big dollars are those who actually run the casino. It won't be the mom and pop operators, because they won't be getting the businesses, because people are not going to be lining up outside the casino for food or for any other services. It's all going to be contained and tailored to suit that casino. And I think too much of this particular community, and I know that land is extremely valuable in Toronto, and pretty soon we'll be looking at other places in the city on where the next pocket of economic development, master plan economic development will be, and I'm pretty sure that this particular parcel of land is worth much more than a casino. You can take a look at Niagara Falls to see what happens when you put a casino into to Niagara Falls. All the activity that takes place around the casino is actually dead. All those streets, not vibrant. Everything is pushed underground, all the parking facilities. There's no vibrancy around the casino. You have to leave the casino to find the beauty of that neighborhood. And the #1 tourist attraction is actually not the casino, it's actually the natural beauty of the falls itself and the botanical gardens. And that's where the city of Niagara Falls is putting their economic future at stake, is that they're investing in those type of cultural assets and not a casino. There is a letter here, an email here from the Chinese Family Services of Ontario, which is the premier flagship service provider for the Chinese Canadian community here in Toronto. They're very clear, and they've noted that they believe that this community, my community, is a targeted population. And they also have noted that there's far more gambling institutions, both legal and illegal, than there are service providers that are providing service and support for those with gambling addictions. They've also noted that it would be irresponsible for us to move ahead with a casino expansion without the services in place to support the community now. And this is a conversation that I can probably have with any Chinese Canadian person in Toronto about the effects of gambling in their family or extended family or their community. There isn't a single person that I know of Chinese Canadian background who doesn't know somebody who will be lined up for the casino bus outside of Chinatown or the long-term care facilities that are catering to the Chinese seniors. And this is actually not new. They've raised this concern over and over again. We heard about the CAMH receiving $100 million for addiction research and counseling. They gave this organization, Chinese Family Services of Ontario, $16,000 to help my local community. Well, let me just tell you that these issues are actually very personal in this community. And I actually struggle to raise it because I've had a conversation with a number of Chinese civic leaders about how much do I say. Well, they said, say as much as you need to say. So I'll tell you that it's personal. As a child who grew up with a father with a gambling addiction, it's personal. I have an uncle who was part of the Hong Kong Jockey Club. It's personal. And it's not just me. It actually goes beyond what my family experienced. But I can tell you that the stories that you've heard are real. And the lives that will be impacted are real. And once you do it, you cannot undo it. And don't just be led by jobs. You've got to make sure those services are there. And right now, they're not there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. I am very sympathetic with what Councillor Wong-Tam has said and ensuring that the services that are required and the scrutiny that is required around problem gambling is ensured at this site in Woodbine. I'm also very clear, I believe, that I might not have voted for it, but Council did vote to go out and establish a casino at this site, tell our staff to do certain things. They've come back. I'm not sure that we are able to overturn that decision on the casino today. What I think our job is today is to be very clear. Whether I support casino or don't support a casino, I feel my job today is to make sure that, should it be introduced, that there are enough safeguards along the lines that Councillor Wong-Tam has spoken about, and that there is accountability around our requirements, that the jobs there are not just jobs. They're not greeter jobs. They're not just minimum wage jobs, that they are without any benefits or dental or anything, that we are seeking good jobs at this site. I feel like that's my job, and that's Council's job. And in order to achieve that, we need to make sure that the accountability is in place to achieve those things. So back in the day, I was here, I'm not sure there's that many who were here, when we introduced the Woodbine Live, it was called, the Cord Agreement, Woodbine Live. And through community discussions and conversations, and Suzanne, Councillor Hall was sitting beside me at that time, Councillor Crisati still beside me from Ward 1. The Cord discussions, many of us didn't agree with it. But the only thing Woodbine Live discussions, we didn't agree with it. But we agreed on, should it come, and Council voted for Woodbine Live, that we needed to ensure the conditions for good jobs, that there would be good jobs, that there was an accountability framework, and that there was money into the community. So that is Council's job now. Our staff have negotiated well and long and hard with the proponent. There's also a planning side here and a subdivision agreement, which gives a little more latitude to look out what does the community need from a subdivision agreement. And now it's Council's turn to say, is it strong enough? Is this strong enough what's here, or do we need a few more things to ensure accountability, that the jobs that we say we're bringing here are good jobs? Because Councillor Crisati will tell you, Councillor Ford will tell you, that this section of our city, this area, sits about 27% lower in wages, 27% lower in the City of Toronto than all other wards. It needs to be a leg up, needs to be lifted up if there's going to be these jobs. I'm not talking about the people going there to gamble. I'm talking about the people that will be working there. They need to be good jobs. We don't want to find that after introducing a casino, for those who voted for it, that it's still, people working there are still poor because they're all working part-time, they've got to work somewhere else. We know what that's like in the City of Toronto, especially for youth working 1, 2, 3 jobs just to make a go of it. These have to be good jobs. So I'm going to support those motions that make sure we have accountability, that would bring an added benefit to the community, dollars-wise, that would have a child care centre, because while there may be a number coming on stream, Councillor Crisati, we're bringing people to a site. We bring people to City Hall every day, and guess what? There's a daycare centre down there, because we understand that for people coming to work, what's going to happen to your kids is number one. And I think anything that strengthens those things, starting with CORD and supporting that, to Community Benefits Network, which is the daughter and son of CORD, that's really our job as councillors. And I'd like to know that we did a good job, that we did a quality job, that we're ensuring good jobs at a site in the northeast corner, and that we are raising the employment numbers.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Thank you. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted to take a moment to re-summarize where we're at today. It's been a long debate, and sometimes we lose our grounding. I want to remind Council that back in July 2015, we made a choice. We made a choice to move forward with expanding gambling at a facility where there already is gambling. And almost 3 years ago, the government set out and placed an RFP based on 21 conditions that we put forward as a council. We made that choice at that time. And I think it's important that we're not re-debating that debate today. What worries me is what I saw over the last couple of weeks as I watched this through the Etobicoke York Community Council and through Executive Committee. I saw a revisiting of those conditions. I saw add-ons. I saw us wade into territory that concerned me, and in my view, we waded into territory that had to do with labor relations. It had to do with the agreements between the workers at the casino and the employer. Things were talked about like a living wage. Things were talked about such as the provision of daycare services to the workers, and on and on. What I worry about is the big picture here. The report from the city manager on page 13 in the third paragraph talks about good faith. About good faith, the role of this council to act in good faith, and that we shouldn't be touching
these 21 conditions at this juncture. We set them forth, and these people headed out on a procurement, and here we are today. We're at a check gate where we want to make sure that these have been met. Our staff have told us that they are, and we are going to make sure that we're satisfied with that. But what I really worry about is what I see even somewhat on the floor today about us wading into these considerations, adding on to them, getting into the business of labor relations. I wonder, though, if it wasn't the casino itself, but what if it was Google? What if it was Microsoft or Apple? What if it was Amazon that we were talking about a deal with right now? Would we be doing the same thing? I'm not sure that we would. I think we have to be very cognizant of what the world is viewing right now in this chamber. And we've heard it before. People in Ontario watch what we do. People in the country watch what we do. And at an international level, people are watching the behavior of this council. And I think the notion of government risk is on the tip of the tongues of all of the investors that are looking at Toronto and other cities to make investments in, to move their companies to. So I would just ask that members of council exercise extreme caution with how we are going to act in good faith with the 21 conditions that were laid out, and to use extreme caution with tampering with them at this juncture. It's not seeing the forest for the trees. People have laudable intentions. People don't like casinos for whatever reason. The debate is over. What's very important here is how we are perceived as a city and as a council with doing business with others. I really don't want to be thought about as bandits. They talk about the one-armed bandit as being part of the casino. Well, you know, I don't want the discussion to end up being that this council were the bandits or extorted things at the last moment or made a deal that nobody could refuse. I would just ask members of council to do what I do once in a while. We have the declaration of office. We take an oath. And it doesn't say it directly, but it just says, I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. And the way that I read that is to act with integrity. And acting with integrity is following through on what we set out long ago in July 2015 with those 21 conditions. And I simply ask that you think about how the world is perceiving us today and exactly what we're doing. And don't necessarily get lost in the trees, but look at the big picture. As the City of Toronto on an international stage that is ready to do business with various partners, and that we will welcome them and work with them as partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fillion.
Thank you. If we were acting with real integrity, we wouldn't be expanding gambling here at all. You know, we know or should know that gambling sucks the life out of communities. We know it takes money from the wallets and purses of those who can least afford it, and we know for some people it can be really soul destroying. And you know, if you have any doubt of that, just watch the faces of people as they come out of the racetrack or out of a room full of slot machines. Just look at, you know, look how defeated they look, and compare that with people who you see coming out of having a nice meal together, having gone to a movie or something. You know, it's just yeah, or church, yes. You know, so if we had integrity, we wouldn't be supporting this at all. And for those who are determined to support it anyway, which I suspect is the majority of the room, then I would say extract every possible community benefit you can get.
Councillor Holyday has the motion. Okay. Thank you. Councillor DeGiorgio, what is your point of order?
I take great exception to someone who says that if we were acting with integrity, we would not approve the expansion of gambling. I take great exception to that. Because if we were acting with great integrity, as I made my point earlier, we would be doing something similar to the approval of the rail park downtown. We would be saying
Okay.
Let's spend $6 billion to
Counselor
create
DeGiorgio.
a destination on these lands. Let's create a destination on these lands that
Counselor
provides
DeGiorgio.
jobs.
Counselor
Let's act
DeGiorgio.
with integrity.
Thank you. Councillor Ford to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to start off by thanking staff for all the hard work they have done and the thousands of hours I know they have, the thousands of hours I know that they have put into this. I want to thank the province and the OLG, Great Canadian Gaming, and Woodbine Entertainment Group who are wanting to be here and invest in my community and the city's northwest and the city of Toronto. I also want to thank my community, the community who has been at the table, the community who has shown up to the number of community consultations, who have listened to our city, who have met with Great Canadian Gaming and Woodbine Entertainment Group as we set out to land the best agreement we could for the City of Toronto and the community I represent. I want to thank Councillor Crisanti and the Mayor for their leadership, and the Mayor specifically for looking at Etobicoke as a destination for these jobs. I also want to thank Council. I want to thank Council back in 2015 for sending out strong conditions, 21 strong conditions that we have in front of us today. And within those conditions, we have an incredible community benefits agreement that our staff have done a great job on. And some of the words and language that our staff used yesterday was a benchmark setting agreement, an industry-leading community benefits agreement. That is what we have in front of us today. And when I look at this project as a local councillor, I don't look at the project as a casino. I look at the full master plan of what we want to do to the city's northwest. This is the first of 3 phases of building out this massive piece of land, 700 acres of land. And it's not just a casino, but it leverages community investment, economic investment for the years to come. We're looking at immediately 2,000 jobs in the short term in the next couple of years, and then 5,000 in the long term. And that is not including the investments that are coming. This hasn't been talked about in this room, that the Northwest, and particularly Rexdale, has 2% higher unemployment than the rest of Toronto. That is a significant number. So when we talk about jobs, that is very serious. That is very serious to the well-being of the people who live in Rexdale. And at these community consultations, I haven't heard one of my residents, and I will put it on record right now, not one who have said, "Councillor, we do not want this." Not one. It will be a catalyst for growth and development. And some councillors are saying, well, Ashley sucks out growth. No, we've actually currently started to see it. Our planning staff are getting applications to develop Rexdale. We've already seen it. My office is working on them as we speak, as well as Councillor Crisanti. So the proof is in the pudding, and we haven't even put a shovel in the ground. We haven't even accepted this development. So the economic development is there, and it is real. It makes transit expansion closer to a reality. We heard that from our chief city planner, that it makes it closer to us, and we can achieve, or closer to achieving, I should say, the transit expansion down 27 and connecting it to the airport, which is a critical connection, not just for our community, but all of our communities, that we can connect across the city north, south, east, and west.
15 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap up here by saying, we heard from our general managers of SDFA that this is a benchmark-setting agreement. We heard from the general manager of economic development that this has the ability to be a massive investment in the City of Toronto. We heard from our chief city planner that it makes transit expansion a reality. We heard from our city manager that the 21 conditions have been met, and we heard from city legal that any tampering with this can make it go out the window. So I will not be supporting any of the amendments, but I support the community benefit agreement as is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Oh, yes. Councillor Perruzza.
Yeah, point of order, Speaker. As I chatted with you earlier, and the staff have recognized that there's a slight technical amendment that needs to be made to my motion 7A, which everybody concurs with, by the way. And it's on the screen there, and it's just the way that the original one was worded. So the change is, it changes the word. It says the working group convened by OGGLP and a Casino Woodbine Responsible Gaming Oversight Committee convened by OLG. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
So that's it's just technical.
Yes, you
Everybody's
did.
okay.
You did
Thank you so
speak
much,
to me, and you
Speaker.
did speak to staff.
Thank you so much, yeah.
So we'll make those adjustments. All right. So. Okay, so that was it for the speakers, and we'll now go to the mayor. Mayor Tory.
Well, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. And I want to begin as well by thanking our city staff, who really have worked, I think, very hard to get our conditions met. And I believe that they have been. I'm going to take issue a bit with some of the comments of, and I want to thank them. First of all, I want to thank Councillor Ford, and I want to thank Councillor Crisanti, because I think they have worked hard and stayed the course on this for the reasons I believe that they're in this for the same reasons that I am supporting it, because it's going to lead to much more important things than a casino. But I do want to say that I disagree that somehow it is going to, as Councillor Holliday suggested, call our integrity into question or anything like that, to do what I believe to be some modest improvements. I mean, there was a negotiation that took place by staff. If it was meant that should have been the last word, then I guess it wouldn't have been brought here for approval. And it was brought here for approval, and I think what is taking place today in terms of the motions that I'm going to review in just a moment is some modest improvements, alterations. I believe they'll be agreed to because I think they're so reasonable, and I don't view it as in any way compromising our position, having put forward the 21 conditions. And just for the record, I believe that Councillor Bailau's series of very reasonable suggestions, including one that I think is entirely reasonable and that I would have been extremely dismayed if it wasn't included, the child care, is worthy of support, both of her motions. I think we can't support Councillor Cressy's, because that would be a complete revisiting, and I'd have to say the same of Councillor Mihevic's. She'll be surprised to hear this, but I would strongly support Councillor Davis's motion. Councillor Thompson's 5A is still with us, and we'll come back to that because Councillor Perruzza has one that we've just talked about a change to. Councillor Karygiannis's I think we should support, and then Councillor Perruzza's 7A and 7B I think these could be supported. And I don't believe any of these in any way would call into integrity our good faith, call into question our good faith. Now, I want to thank the advocates too, because I think the advocates helped us to better understand the challenge that was in front of us. If you're going to make the assumption, or you're going to proceed on the basis there's going to be gambling there, expanded gambling, how do we make it such that it's better? So that it's better socially, it's better economically, it's better in terms of the relationships, and I think a lot of the advocates in the community have helped us with that. Now, gambling there's been a lot of talk about that. In fact, we've gone back, and this is the one thing that probably was like Groundhog Day here, which we do is go back and revisit the issue of gambling, which actually was, as Councillor Holyday and Councillor Ford and others said, dealt with at a prior meeting, the notion of expanded gambling. What we did is we said yes and put conditions on it. But let's just deal with the subject of gambling. I'm not a big pro-gambling person. I wouldn't have supported initiating it downtown if I had been here at the time that was up for a vote. I wouldn't have supported it at Woodbine, frankly, were it not for the fact, two facts really. Number one, that it's already there, big time. I mean, there's horse racing, gambling, and there's other forms of gambling already there. And secondly, that if I believe there was some other way in which we could attract the private sector investment there that is going to create a lot of real jobs for a lot of real people who are looking for jobs in that part of town, then I would have been happy to look at some kind of an alternative. But the fact is there wasn't one in front of us. And I would say to those who have been here before in previous terms of council and have struggled with the notion that we've had high unemployment, considerably higher than other parts of the city for a long time. We have marginalized groups up there that really don't think they have a look in at all, that if there was some other way in which any of those people could have produced anything that was going to be a catalyst for strong private sector investment up there, I would have thought they would have brought it forward and initiated it before now. So given that we had gambling there and somebody came forward and said, fine, what we're going to have, we would like to have some expanded gambling, I proceeded from the beginning, and I've been very open about this, in saying, well, I wasn't that keen on the expanded gambling for all the reasons people have discussed, and just, but we were assured, and we made as one of our conditions, there would have to be significant additional other non-gambling related investment and jobs, and those jobs would have to go in sufficient numbers to people who live in that community. And if there's any doubt about the demand being there for jobs, we took a job fair up there, an initiative of our government, in which I was personally involved, and we convinced employers to go up there. We actually even had a component of it financed by the province to offer job application opportunities to people that had a criminal record, and I was there. And the place, this was just for young people, and the place was overrun with people who wanted to apply. And if I thought, again, it was only the casino jobs, I would say, well, those are still jobs. I mean, we sit here and spend a lot of time putting those jobs down. Well, I guess if you don't have a job, you might well say that a job in a casino or around a casino would be better than the one you don't have. But having said that, if I thought that was it, I'd be sitting here going, well, is it worth it, for that? But that's not the case. There is going to be huge additional investment here that I believe will lead to far from what was being described as kind of a wasteland with tumbleweed rolling down the sidewalks. And in fact, there are going to be office buildings, and there are going to be residential buildings, and there are going to be hotels. They're right in the phases of this that are going to lead to thousands, not hundreds, but thousands of jobs in an area of the city that is marginalized, that is isolated, and where the people don't think there's anybody in their corner. They don't think there's anybody going to bat. And I would respectfully say to those who say, well, this isn't the right answer, where was the answer they had in previous years to the economic development of what is one of the most bereft areas of the city when it comes to people putting investment in there? And don't tell me it's the government that was going to put that investment in and create those jobs. The government can help. It's going to be a private sector confidence that is going to do that, and the private sector confidence, for right or for wrong, is going to be drawn by the fact that there is this entertainment center there with the gambling. And so maybe it is the price we pay with all the conditions to protect us in terms of problem gambling and so on. We will try our best on that, but we're going to get a huge benefit. Somebody at the executive committee said it was a bad deal. Well, I mean, the gambling part certainly brings about mixed opinions, and I respect that, but it isn't a bad deal when it brings about thousands of good jobs for people that they're going to now have, many of them occupied by people in that part of town. And so I have been a bit ambivalent about this all the way through, and I've been honest about that, and every time I've spoken on it. But I think in the end, if you said to me, do I want to take this deal with all of its conditions and some of the improvement to those conditions that's being made today, my answer would be yes, because we owe it to those people to give them a chance, which is all they're asking for, a sense of hope in that part of town where there's been a lot of people without hope for a very long time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Okay, so we're ready to vote. Is it? Okay. Okay, that's the order of the motions. It's on the screen. And a bingo hall, too. Okay, I'm done. Is everyone done? Yeah. 5B has been withdrawn. Do you want mine? And bingo, yes. That was my part-time job. My full-time was banking. No, they don't have those chips anymore. It's all computerized. Used to be the dabber. Okay, so we'll put we're ready? So we'll put the first motion on the screen, which is motion 1A. Pardon? Okay. Councillor Holyday has asked that 1A1 be voted on separately, so let's vote on that first. Recorded vote.
Councillor Karygiannis, please.
Councillor Crisanti, please.
Motion 1A, Part 1, carries 38-4.
Okay, the remainder? Recorded vote?
Councillor Perruzza and Councillor DiGiorgio, please. Councillor Carmichael Greb, please.
The remainder of motion 1A carries 40-2.
Motion number 2 by Councillor Cressy. Recorded vote.
Councillor DiGiorgio, please. Councillor Pasternak. Councillor Davis, please.
Councillor Fletcher, please.
The motion does not carry. The vote is 16-26.
Motion number 3 by Councillor Mihevc. Recorded vote.
Councillor Perruzza, Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor McMahon, please.
Councillor Cole, please.
The motion does not carry. The vote is 19 to 23.
Motion 7A revised by Councillor Perruzza. Did we want a recorded vote on that? Yeah, okay.
Councillor Lee, please. Councillor Wong Tam.
Councillor Crisanti, please.
Motion 7A carries 37 to 5.
Motion 5A by Councillor Thompson, recorded vote. As amended.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
Councillor Robinson, please.
Motion 5A as amended carries 40 to 2.
Motion 1B by Councillor Bailao. Recorded vote.
Councillor Cole, please. Thank you.
Motion 1B carries 39 to 3.
Motion 4 by Councillor Davis. Recorded vote.
Councillor.
Motion 4 carries 37 to 5.
Wow. Motion 6 by Councillor Karygiannis. Recorded vote.
Councillor DeGiorgio, please. Councillor McMahon, Councillor Wong Tam. Councillor Hart, please. And Councillor Davis.
Councillor Cole and Councillor Crawford, please. Thank you.
Councillor McMahon, thank you.
Motion 6 carries 33 to 9.
Motion 7B by Councillor Perruzza. Recorded vote.
Councillor Holland, please.
Councillor Matlow, please.
Motion 7B carries 35 to 7.
Okay, item as amended, recorded vote. Oh, item EX 33.2 as amended, recorded vote.
Councillor Karygiannis, please. Councillor Matlow, Councillor Perruzza, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Rajamari. Councillor Rajamari, please, and Councillor Perruzza. Councillor Rajamari, on item as amended. Councillor Perruzza. Councillor Perruzza, your vote, please.
The item as amended carries 26 to 15.
Yeah. On page 6, EY 29.2, on that item, recorded vote.
Councillor Perruzza, please. Councillor McMahon. Councillor Perks. Councillor Davis, please. Sorry.
Councillor Mammoliti, please.
The item is adopted 29 to 13.
Okay. Now we'll go to our next item that was timed, which is on page 4, EX 33.3, which is the development charges bylaw. Councillor Holliday, you held it down. Do we have questions to staff?
Thank you. No, I do not, Madam Speaker. I'm prepared to simply have a vote on that.
Okay, Councillor Perks has questions.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Perks, question?
My first question is, so the development charges bylaw that we're proposing here covers what percentage of the infrastructure that is eligible, covers what percentage of the cost of it?
The development charges bylaw recovery is approximately 60% of the growth-related capital program.
Okay. And the proposed development charge here is lower than the one that we considered, I'm forgetting when.
Through the Speaker, yes, Council, our Executive Committee did hold a
Sorry,
public
Speaker,
meeting.
there's too much noise.
Yeah, just a sec.
Mr. Farag is a very intelligent man, and I want to hear his answers.
Councillor Fletcher? Councillor Fletcher, please, can we keep it down?
So to remind you, this proposal here is lower than the one we considered previously?
The Development Charges Act requires that a statutory public meeting be held. It was held at Executive Committee in January. At that time, Executive Committee entertained deputations. A number of deputations indicated that there were technical challenges with the background study. The background study is some 510 pages, and directed staff to undertake further consultations. We've done that on a technical basis. We're recommending a reduction of the charge in the order of about 9% from that was recommended at the public meeting.
Now, I'm sorry, because we just came off another item that I was working on,
I don't have my report in front of me, but I recall that the report says that the proposal in front of us achieves a balance between trying to get as much revenue as we can and affordability for developers. Am I remembering that right?
No, I think what we suggested is that we needed an orderly transition into the new development charge regime, which we're proposing that almost a doubling of the charge, and we felt that the implementation of that increase should be phased over a 2-year period.
So I'm now reading, so on page 2, the proposed bylaw attempts to strike an appropriate balance between revenue optimization, City Council long-term planning, economic development objectives, and due consideration of the potential impact on the land development and construction industry. So does that or does not mean that the development charge that we have in front of us doesn't go out and attempt to recover enough money to cover all of our needs, but in fact is slightly reduced so that we don't put an undue burden on the development industry?
Through the Speaker, I would suggest that the actual
Isn't that what it actually says?
I would suggest that the actual quantum is the appropriate quantum increase. This refers to the phasing in of the increase and the impact that the phasing in of the charge would have on the development community.
Mr. Farag, I appreciate that, but that's not what the staff report that we have in front of us says. I'm going to read it again. The proposed bylaw attempts to strike an appropriate balance between revenue optimization, City Council long-term planning and economic development objectives, and due consideration of the potential impact on the land development and construction industry. When you signed the report that said that, was it in your mind that if we attempted to recover 100% or some higher number, or the 9% we were previously at, that we would be putting some unbearable burden on the development and construction industry?
Through the Speaker, again, respectfully, that provision, that sentence, in fact, dealt with the phasing in of the increase in the levy. It did not refer to the minor adjustment to the rates that were contemplated between the public meeting and today.
Okay, so if we can't and shouldn't get to a higher number right away because it would be a difficult burden, we're nevertheless losing revenue as we phase up that we could have had, and how is that revenue replaced?
Through the Speaker, the revenue we've identified as a theoretical number at $170 million. There's a confidential attachment that speaks to the negotiated settlement that we have with BUILD, the industry representative. And in that confidential attachment, it speaks to a risk management approach to the phase-in provision. In other words, we believe it's in our financial best interest to have an agreement secured with the industry, and that financial benefit is in excess of the $170 million.
I'm not asking about whether there's risk. I'm asking about where does the money come from? Where does it come from?
That was your last question, Councillor.
There are two impacts associated with that. Either it's a reduction in the growth-related capital program or alternative revenue options, which primarily would include taxation.
Thank you. Councillor Al-Jamari, questions.
Thank you, Speaker. My questions have to do with levels of DCs. Have you thought about the differentiating, perhaps scaling DCs according to the hotspot communities where development is rampant, and the less prestigious communities, the communities that need development? Having them sizably lowered for those communities?
Through the Speaker, certainly we've looked at that, area-specific development charges versus citywide uniform charges. And in every single bylaw that we've done the analysis, going back to 1999, there has never been a consensus amongst the development industry as well as the stakeholders for area-specific charges. I can tell you that that analysis has been conducted, and we feel very strongly that we should continue to base the charges on a citywide approach. Having said,
why do you need the consensus in the development community? We're setting up the procedure, we're setting up the law, so to speak.
so it's incredibly difficult from an administrative as well as from a public policy perspective to justify a bylaw that is area specific, that's differentiated on the basis of geography. We do differentiate the charges on the basis of types of units, but we do not do so on the basis of geography. This bylaw is appealable to the Ontario Municipal Board, and quite frankly, there's a significant risk if we were to adopt a different methodology.
It is still appealable?
Yes, it's appealable to the successor to the Ontario Municipal Board.
I don't purport to speak for Scarborough, for example, but you've heard the appeals of many Scarborough councillors. And I believe you've heard from the speaker about her community, which is very similar in some ways. Is there no way that you can think of that would come to the aid of these communities in order to help, in an interim way even, to lower the charges somehow, to make these communities more competitive?
Certainly, there are other tools beyond development charges, so we could look at things like community improvement plans, which would contemplate potentially, providing some element of incentives to promote development within those areas. And we'll be working with the chief planner on those plans and bring them forward at a later date to council.
Thank you.
Good question.
Councillor Mammoliti?
So I'm not a fan of development charges for a lot of reasons. Would it be safe to say that we're relying on development charges a little too much with our budget here at the City of Toronto? That in fact, if it takes a dive, if development takes a dive, so would our finances?
So certainly development charges are an integral tool to funding growth.
Sorry, I can't hear. I know Councillor Cressy is really a really important player in this chamber, but sometimes I just don't want to hear his voice.
We rely primarily on taxation, user fees, and federal and provincial subsidies. To a lesser extent, development charges are utilized in the city. We generate roughly $250 million annually for a capital program that's in the order of $3 billion. So it is a small component of the overall capital.
That wasn't my question. My question is, are we relying a little too much on development charges for us to survive financially in the City of Toronto?
Through the Speaker, no, I don't believe so.
You don't? Okay. Then maybe you can answer this question. The industry is starting to get worried about us charging a little too much. And will there be a breaking point with respect to the industry saying we're not going to entertain any development in the City of Toronto? And if so, when would that breaking point come?
Through the Speaker, BUILD, which is the association that represents developers and land builders, has in fact agreed to the development charge bylaw that's before you. So as an industry representative, we have effectively their concurrence with the policies that are before you.
But are we kind of twisting their arm in saying, yeah, we agree with this, or are we allowing them the flexibility and the ability to give their actual opinions?
So through the Speaker, we've had...
You don't have to answer that.
Well, we've had considerable engagement with the development community, and quite frankly, it appears that all stakeholders are supportive of the proposals that are before you.
So at no point do they come to you and say, okay, we kind of agree, even though our arm's being a bit twisted, we kind of agree, but you really got to be careful, because if you keep this up, we're just not going to invest in your city anymore.
So they had initial concerns. However, we've been able to come to a meeting of the minds, if you will, and again, the proposal that's before you is supported by most, if not all, stakeholders.
So I know some of those stakeholders, and I think I know some of the ones that the city's meeting with, but you know, when you talk to them, it's like a different story. It's like you really got to be careful. Is what I'm hearing is that, you know, there comes a point where they're just not going to invest. So are you kind of saying that I'm hearing a different version than the city's hearing, or?
Well, I don't think he can answer.
I know. I'll speak.
Councillor Mammoliti, how can he comment how what you're hearing?
I said I know.
Okay, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just on the financial impact, it says that the approval of proposed development charges bylaw expected to result in an addition of 230 to 250 million annually in development charges. So does that mean that, in other words, if these had been enacted a year ago, we would have had $250 million more in our budget?
Yes, the development charges bylaw has a shelf life of 5 years. It expires on October 31st of this year. Okay. And so we're proposing to replace it with the bylaw that's before you to commence on November 1st.
Okay. So then it says the total annual development charges revenues once the increases are expected to be fully phased in are expected to be 500 to 540 million. At what point in time will those monies be realized?
The bylaw that's before you has a phase-in provision of over a 2-year period, so the increases are phased in over that 2-year period. And so 2 years from bylaw expiry, we would expect to generate a level of revenue in the order of 550 million.
Okay, so an extra 500 million will be coming into the city coffers by, let's say, 2020-21.
In total, that's the total revenue that will flow to the city annually, which is an increment of roughly 250 million over the existing.
Okay, I got it. Okay, good. Because we might need that money, because you never know where the municipal land transfer tax is going to go, right? That revenue.
That's right, yes. It would supplement the MLTT revenue.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it for the questions. Now we'll go to speakers. Councillor Holyday.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll be very brief. I will not be supporting the report or the supplemental report. It's not because I don't appreciate the duty of council to deal with development charges and to continuously update them and refresh them. I have some reservations over Laneway Suites, and I know that that will come to council as another report in the near future, and I'll talk about it more then. But very briefly, I am concerned about the draws on infrastructure that Laneway Suites will cause. I believe that they will cause us to have to raise standards for the way that we treat laneways right now, and that works diametrically opposed to the concepts that are presented in this report to discount the development charges on the Laneway Suites. And so I don't feel that this is the right direction. And because of that, and because of the idea that this is intertwined in the report, I'll simply vote against the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mammoliti.
So, Madam Speaker, if it's okay with you, I've got the clerk letting me know whether or not one of my motions is in order. I'm actually going to try and reduce development charges in the City of Toronto. So I'll let you know in a minute. I'll skip my turn.
Councillor Matlow.
Clerk is working on a motion. I have a motion, so I just want to make sure it's prepared. Is the motion prepared? We don't have it. Okay. And perhaps Councillor Perks will be before me.
Councillor Perks to speak.
Well, it'll be a relief to all of you that I don't have a motion, but I think I wanted to just take a moment to talk a little bit about the proposal in front of us. I want to begin by acknowledging that I believe our staff got everything they could, and they fought hard, and I've read the confidential report, and, you know, frankly, the deck is stacked against us. When the development industry has all the opportunities to delay, obstruct, and fight, to make sure that the profit that they make off developing buildings in the City of Toronto isn't in any way encumbered by contributing to the costs associated with those buildings to the full extent of what we have to bear. I know that they did their best. I know they did it in a hard circumstance. That being said, we have to remember that essentially what we're being asked to agree to today is that $6 out of every 10 are paid for by the development industry, which means that $4 out of every 10 come out of some other revenue source. Property taxes, the land transfer tax, that kind of thing. And that creates a real dilemma for us. It creates a dilemma for us, which frankly I wish we had had more clearly in our minds yesterday when we were debating Smart Track. In that report, it says we will draw against the general transit portion of the development charge. Well, as all of you know, particularly those of you who read the long-term financial plan or have looked at recent budgets, we're already vastly behind on our ability to build transit in the City of Toronto. Now, $4 out of every 10, so we're already not at the place where we can pay for what we know we need. And then we're adding things on top of that. Saying that we're going to cover part of those with our development charges when we know we already don't have enough money for the things we've already approved is effectively saying, no, we're actually going to be paying for that with property taxes. We may shuffle the money between accounts, but we are now in a position where the province of Ontario that controls the development charges legislation and controls the funding for transit, we're now in a place where uniquely among cities the size of Toronto are paying for transit and transit expansion to deal with population growth out of property taxes. No other government in North America or Europe that is trying to expand its transit system is faced with this. I hope that this council over the next 4 years, during its next term, really wrestles with that problem and really stops making deals where we pay for their transit and they don't pay for ours. Really starts to reflect on the fact that we can't take huge signature projects and pretend that we have some way to pay for them. And really focuses in on the need for new revenue sources that we control ourselves. Things like a portion of the income tax or the sales tax, or even, and I had to hold my nose, but I went along with it, road tolls. If we are going to accommodate the growth that's coming into our city and to meet the goals that we all talk about of building a lot of transit in the City of Toronto, we need to stand up and say the province of Ontario has cut us off, put us out on an ice floe and said good luck to you. And if we're ever going to build the infrastructure that the City of Toronto needs, we need new revenue. I thought that looking at this development charge bylaw was an important moment for us to realize why it is we're in the fiscal hole we're in and what it is we're going to have to do to get out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so in light that we're waiting for two motions. No, we won't. We'll have to come back after lunch. No, not. After lunch. Yeah. No. Councillor Mammoliti, also Councillor Matlow's waiting for a motion. That's not ready. No, we can't do quick releases. We're in the middle of an item. Okay, Councillor Mammoliti, quickly then, because you only have 4 minutes.
That the City Council directed the Chief Financial Officer to report to the Executive Committee on the feasibility of reducing development charges outside the downtown and midtown areas of the City of Toronto. This, to me, makes sense. If we're going to start relying on development charges, and if we're going to start relying on future development, we should also be talking about where that development should take place. And I think that if we're serious about wanting, and we just talked about one area of the city with the casino and what that has sparked. You heard the local councillor, both local councillors talk about all the application that seemed to have surfaced since the casino application. That's development. Now, if we were serious about this, we would change our own policies to reflect no development charges, or if not, reduction in development charges in certain parts of the city that we would like to see redeveloped. That's how to stimulate the economy in the City of Toronto. That's how to make people feel comfortable. That's how to make communities feel comfortable knowing that jobs come out of these particular policies. And that's how to make those that do develop comfortable with the City of Toronto as well. A lot of them are complaining about the high costs of development charges in the downtown part of the city and in the midtown part of the city. If you give them an opportunity and say, well, these lands are a little cheaper for you and these parts, and we would encourage you to start looking for these kinds of lands to redevelop, I think it's a win-win for everybody, and I don't know why we haven't done this in the past. I want to thank Councillor Al-Jamari, actually, for bringing that up as well, because I know that is an issue on the floor, and I know that we're trying to find a reasonable way of charging developers money and encouraging them to find places to build. I disagree with what I heard from staff. I think that there is a breaking point with developers. I think at one point or another they're going to say, we don't want to do business with the City of Toronto anymore. And they'll be looking around the GTA for partners that want to do that. So this report should come sooner than later so that we could figure out what that breaking point is and how we can actually encourage them to do more business in the City of Toronto, even if it is outside the downtown part of the city or the midtown part of the city.
Okay, thank you. A recess to 2 o'clock.